Grandma didn't need an app to budget or a spreadsheet to track expenses. She learned how to save by stretching pennies, making things last, and living by the rule: waste not, want not. Her hacks weren't just about pinching every cent, they were about being resourceful, clever, and practical. Whether it was in the kitchen, around the house, or out in the garden, she knew how to make the most of what she had. So if you're ready to save smarter, here are Grandma's 55 clever saving hacks you'll wish you knew sooner. Grandma always saved her bacon grease in a tin on the stovetop. She used it to flavor beans, roast potatoes, or fry eggs instead of using store-bought oil or butter. It added depth to her cooking and meant she never wasted a drop of something that still had value. One jar of grease did more in her kitchen than a dozen spice jars. She cut open toothpaste tubes, lotion bottles, and soap dispensers to scoop out every last bit. What most folks would throw away still had days, sometimes a week, of use left inside. She'd keep the trimmed container in a sandwich bag until it was truly empty. Nothing got tossed until it was bone dry. Instead of buying paper towels, Grandma used cut-up t-shirts and old towels as reusable cleaning rags. She kept a basket under the sink and washed them once a week. They soaked up spills better than paper and never tore. Plus, she never had to buy a single roll of paper towels in decades. She line-dried clothes year-round, even in the winter. In cold months, she hung laundry on a wooden rack near a window or heat vent. It saved on the electric bill, added moisture to dry indoor air, and made the whole house smell like fresh cotton. She said the dryer was for emergencies, like rain on laundry day. To make her dish soap last, she diluted it with water in a foaming pump bottle. A quarter cup of soap filled with water created weeks of bubbles for washing up. It cleaned just as well and stretched each bottle twice as far. She always said it wasn't about buying less, it was about using better. Grandma wrapped her water heater with an old quilt to help retain heat. It was a trick she learned from her mother during the Depression. That extra insulation meant the water stayed hotter longer, so the heater ran less often. Her utility bills were always low, and her showers were always warm. She never ran the dishwasher unless it was completely full. And when she did, she used a splash of vinegar in the rinse compartment instead of rinse aid. It cut through grease, helped prevent water spots, and cost a fraction of what the store-bought stuff did. Smart, simple, and effective. Grandma made her own dryer sheets with vinegar and fabric scraps. She'd soak the cloth in vinegar and a drop of essential oil, let it dry, and toss it in with the laundry. Static gone, clothes softened, and no chemicals in sight. One jar of vinegar made dozens of dryer sheets that she reused for months. She froze everything before it went bad. Milk, bread, eggs, cracked into ice cube trays, cheese, you name it. Her freezer was a map of how to avoid food waste. She kept a notebook of what was in there, so nothing got forgotten. She said, "Your freezer's not a graveyard. It's a bank account for groceries." When she baked, Grandma always used reusable parchment liners or greased pans with saved butter wrappers. She'd fold the wrappers and keep them in the fridge just for that purpose. They had just enough grease left to do the job and gave her baked goods that extra buttery flavor. 7th, she grew her own herbs in mason jars on the windowsill. Basil, parsley, and mint were always within reach, and she never had to buy a sad plastic clamshell from the store again. She even snipped clippings into ice cube trays with water or oil to save for soups and sauces later. To cut back on meat, she added oats or lentils to ground beef when making meatloaf or burgers. It stretched the meat, lowered the cost, and added fiber and texture. Nobody noticed, and when they did, they just asked for seconds. She called it savings you could chew. She stored leftover veggie scraps, onion skins, carrot tops, celery ends, in a bag in the freezer. When it was full, she'd simmer it all into broth. No salt, no waste, just deep flavor from what others would throw away. Her soups always started with stock made from leftovers, not cartons. She only ran the oven when she had more than one thing to cook. If she was baking bread, she'd roast vegetables or a chicken while the oven was hot. Once she turned it on, she made the most of every degree. She said, "Waste heat is wasted money." Grandma always kept a small envelope in her purse for cashback or loyalty coupons. Whether it was from the drugstore or the grocery, She used everyone before it expired. She kept a running list of which stores offered what deals and never paid full price if she didn't have to. Grandma reused foil until it was threadbare. After baking or covering a dish, she'd gently wipe the foil clean, fold it flat, and store it in a drawer. Unless it was torn or greasy beyond saving, it got at least 2 or 3 uses. For lining pans or covering leftovers, it worked like a charm. No waste, no extra cost. She made her own cleaning spray with vinegar, citrus peels, and water. She soaked the peels in vinegar for 2 weeks, then strained the liquid and filled a spray bottle. It cleaned counters, windows, sinks, you name it, and left the house smelling bright and fresh. She said the store-bought stuff was just overpriced perfume in a bottle. To save water, Grandma kept a bucket in the shower. While the water warmed up, it filled the bucket instead of going down the drain. She used that water to flush the toilet or water her plants. Not a drop went to waste, and she said small habits added up to big savings over time. She repurposed every glass jar. Peanut butter jars became bulk food storage, jam jars turned into spice containers, and pickle jars held dry beans and rice. She labeled them with masking tape and a marker, stacked them neatly, and always knew what she had. No need to buy fancy storage sets. When it came to heating, Grandma layered up before she ever turned up the thermostat. Flannel shirts, wool socks, and a warm quilt meant she could keep the house a few degrees cooler. She said it made her feel cozy and gave the power company a little less money every month. She filled old socks with dried beans or rice and microwaved them to use as homemade heating pads. Perfect for sore muscles or cold beds in winter, and they cost nothing to make. She tied them off with string and stitched a few for gifts. Comfort made simple. Grandma cut the ends off every squeeze bottle. Ketchup, shampoo, conditioner, you name it. She'd scrape the sides clean with a spatula and get 1 or 2 more uses out of it. That extra little scoop added up when you practiced it over a lifetime. She repaired everything before replacing it. Buttons were sewn, socks were darned, and chair legs were glued. Her junk drawer held tools, thread, safety pins, and glue, and she knew how to use every item in it. She believed buying new was the last resort, not the first instinct. To keep her freezer efficient, she filled empty containers with water to take up space. A full freezer uses less energy and holds its temperature better. When she needed extra ice for a cooler, she had frozen jugs ready to go, dual purpose, and smart as ever. She never bought trash bags for small bins. Instead, she used grocery bags, bread bags, or cereal liner bags for bathroom or bedroom waste. Tied up and tossed out, no need for anything extra. She said you're already paying for the packaging. Might as well use it twice. Grandma turned stale bread into breadcrumbs and croutons. She cubed it for soups, blitzed it for coating chicken, or made bread pudding when there was enough. Nothing moldy ever made it into the mix. Just day-old slices turned delicious. She rinsed out milk jugs and used them to store rainwater for her garden. Placed under the gutters or at the corner of the porch, they filled up during a good storm. Later, she'd pour them at the roots of her flowers, saving both her water bill and her back. Grandma packed her lunch anytime she left the house for errands. A thermos of coffee, a peanut butter and jelly, and an apple meant she never needed to stop for takeout. She said most impulse spending happened on an empty stomach, and her lunch always tasted better anyway. She wrapped her fridge's coils with a towel and gently vacuumed them once a month. Clean coils meant better efficiency and longer appliance life. She treated machines like family. They worked hard and deserved a little care to keep doing their job right. Instead of expensive air fresheners, she simmered spices on the stove. Cinnamon, orange peels, cloves. A small pot of fragrant steam made the whole house feel welcoming. Guests always asked what she was baking, and she just smiled and said, "Nothing yet." She made her own greeting cards from leftover fabric, newspaper clippings, or pressed flowers. She had a small box of supplies and would sit down with scissors and glue and create beautiful, thoughtful cards for pennies. No one ever tossed one of Grandma's cards, they were too special. 32. To stretch her shampoo and conditioner, she used half the recommended amount and rinsed thoroughly with a vinegar water mix once a week. It made her hair soft, shiny, and clean without needing to buy extra bottles. She said your scalp doesn't need a soap bath every day. She made her own breadcrumbs from cracker crumbs at the bottom of the box. Mixed with spices and a bit of cornmeal, it became the perfect breading for meat or topping for casseroles. She said flavor came from the pantry, not the store. She never ran a single load of laundry that wasn't full. If something needed to be done sooner, she hand washed it in the sink. She even reused the rinse water to pre-soak stained clothes. Nothing ran unless it earned the energy it cost. Grandma mended old bath towels into cleaning cloths and pot holders. When the edges frayed or a hole appeared, she'd cut and stitch them into something new. It wasn't just saving, it was transforming one useful item into another. She used every part of a chicken. Bones went into stock, drippings into gravy, and the leftover meat into casseroles or sandwiches. No part was wasted, and every piece had a second life in a new dish. She said, thrift starts in the kitchen. To avoid heating up the whole house in summer, she cooked in big batches early in the morning or used her slow cooker. She said the oven was for winter, and smart cooking was as much about comfort as it was about savings. She made her own calendar on a sheet of paper and filled it with birthdays, bills, and coupons to use. No apps needed, just a pencil and the wall by the phone. She never missed a due date or a deal. Instead of tossing worn-out sheets, she turned them into curtain liners, picnic cloths, or drop cloths for painting. They folded easy, washed well, and could be cut to any size she needed. She said the fabric was still good, it just needed a new job. Grandma never paid for water when she was out. She brought her own. Whether it was a glass bottle or an old thermos, she had a drink with her everywhere she went. She said it saved money and kept her from getting tempted by overpriced snacks. She froze leftover frosting, whipped cream, and even small bits of gravy in ice cube trays. When a recipe called for a little flavor, she had exactly what she needed without opening a new jar. It turned her freezer into a bank of ingredients. She reused envelopes from bills by placing labels over the old addresses. For notes, recipes, or storage lists, they worked just fine. She said new paper doesn't write better, it just costs more. She bought in bulk, but only what she used often. Flour, oats, rice, beans, all stored in glass jars and clearly labeled. She kept a dry bay leaf in the containers to keep bugs out. It worked, and nothing went to waste. 5. She made her own ice packs by freezing dish soap in double-bagged Ziploc bags. They stayed flexible, cold for hours, and worked just as well as store-bought gel packs. She used them for sore knees and for keeping picnic lunches cool. Green onions, lettuce, and celery in water on the windowsill. She just cut the tops and set the roots in a cup of water, changing it every few days. Within a week, fresh shoots were ready to snip again. She called it grocery store gardening. 47. She clipped coupons from every flyer, even ones for products she didn't use. If a neighbor or friend used it, she'd pass it along, and they did the same. It built community and meant nobody paid full price if they didn't have to. Grandma cleaned her mirrors and windows with newspaper and vinegar. No streaks, no chemicals, and no need to buy paper towels. It made glass sparkle and her whole house looked brighter for pennies. Homemade gifts using what she had: jam from backyard fruit, a jar of dried herbs, or sewn sachets filled with lavender. Each one cost little, but meant a lot. She believed generosity didn't have to cost money. When a zipper broke, she used a paper clip or key ring to make it usable again. She said, if it still works, it still has a job. Her coats, bags, and even boots had years added to their life with tiny fixes like this. She reused cereal box liners as wax paper or sandwich bags. They were sturdy, clean, and worked just like the ones from the roll. She folded them, stacked them, and kept them in a drawer for lunches or leftovers. She kept a ledger of every dollar spent and every penny saved. Not for guilt, but for awareness. She said money doesn't disappear, it just walks off if you don't keep an eye on it. And she always knew where hers went. And finally, Grandma's best saving hack was teaching the next generation. She shared what she knew, explained why it mattered, and reminded us that saving money isn't about sacrifice. It's about stewardship. It's about caring for what you have, so it lasts, and living in a way that makes life feel full, even when your wallet isn't. If even one